Hey everybody, it's Joe from Papa Jobo's, and today we're going to talk about Andor. Unfortunately, in this day and age, before you watch any new show or movie, you have to listen to what the showrunners and the actors are saying about it before you watch it to know exactly what type of stuff you're going to get in it. In this case, it's no different, and in fact, because it's Disney, it's actually worse. You kind of know what you're getting already, but these showrunners have said specifically that this is a Trumpian world, that Mon Mothma is Nancy Pelosi, and that this woman from the Empire is going to come down and show all these stupid men how to do things right. So you've already been given 3 huge red flags for this show if you're not a leftist. If you're a leftist, you're going to love all that stuff they said, and you're going to enjoy the show. But you've already been told that, and most fans don't want that in their show. Even a lot of liberals don't want it in their show, and I'm the same way. I'm an independent guy. I don't need to see politics in my shows at all, unless it's specifically stated this is a political show. In this case, we also have we have a few other really big red flags. One of them is you got a few girl bosses in it. They're being built up. They're not a huge issue right now, but they're going to be there and you're going to see them. Why? Because the showrunners have told you. They've literally told you what this show is about and what political messaging they're trying to get across. There's also the fact that they have AK-47s in it. Not only is this ridiculously lore breaking, but it's just a subtle jab. For me, it's not so subtle. For me, it's really overt. They're showing you, hey, look, we've got a Marxist agenda behind this, and we're gonna advertise one of the biggest symbols of that. You might as well have just been holding up a flag with a hammer and sickle on it, in my opinion. But having said that, here's an interesting thing to me. Why do so many of you keep going back to it? That's what I'm having a huge time understanding with the Star Wars fandom specifically. You take the Lord of the Rings fandom and look how strong they've been. Look at how stalwart they've been in fighting that. And I'm a part of that. My 2 favorite IPs, Lord of the Rings and Star Wars. And then you have the Star Wars fandom. You keep on having people going back to it over and over and over again. You are literally part of a battered fan syndrome. What is battered fan syndrome? Well, it's much like a battered wife syndrome. You keep going back to the thing that you think you love just to be slapped down over and over and over. I don't get it. I literally don't get it. One of you guys is going to have to explain this to me, because I've seen a lot of people who tend to identify with the way that I see things with Disney, slowly going back to it. Now, I will say I empathize with you, though, because as someone who loves Star Wars at a very deep level, someone who will openly say it helped save my life as a teenager, I can tell you flat out, I understand why you want it to be so successful. I understand why you want to keep going back to it. I'm empathetic to that completely. But what I don't understand is why you keep going back to something that is so subpar. And we'll talk about this show a little bit and why it's subpar. First of all, it's a prequel, another prequel. We don't need any more prequels. And it's a prequel about some guy named Andor. I understand he's from Rogue One. Not a very good movie, by the way, except for the Darth Vader scene. Some decent special effects and a robot that I really like. Now, obviously you can debate that until we're all blue in the face. But regardless, to me, it's a very bad movie, and we could go into why. But that's not what this show is about. That's not what this video is about. It's about Cassian Andor. I'm really tired of prequels. I'm tired of them, and I'm tired of them from Disney. You have to have a really special character to be able to tell a prequel about that people want to watch, okay? And Andor just isn't one of them. You also have this show. It's based on, surprise, surprise, another heist plot for Disney. I'm not kidding you. Go back and watch the previous 9 Disney shows, movies. They're all based on the same thing, a stupid heist. It's getting old, obviously. The politics is getting old, and I'm done with the prequels. Move on to something else that isn't politically charged and horribly written like the sequels, which I've said it a million times. Disney Star Wars is not Star Wars. That will never change. Another point to this show is that a lot of people are saying it's a great slow burn. I see it as completely different. I see it as very slow and boring. They released the first 3 episodes together for a reason, because people were watching it in focus groups and going, it's really slow. Well, release it all together, you get the story all together, and it makes it a little more bearable. For me personally, it's just boring. Now, if you want a great example of what a slow burn is supposed to be, go watch Hinterland. One of the best shows ever made, and it does a slow burn properly. A lot of people are saying in comments, and this is just, it's surprising me. In a way, Disney is successfully turning fans against fans again, part of what they want to do. They want to get rid of like a 20-30% of the fan base. They've been very clear about that. You go read about it. It's not just made up. They don't care about a very specific a portion of the fan base. But this whole slow burn thing, people are saying that if you don't like Breaking Bad, you won't like this, or if you don't like this, you don't like Breaking Bad. And that's such a weird comparison to me because the two have nothing to do with each other in plot points. They're talking solely about pacing. First of all, Breaking Bad isn't a huge slow burn. There's a lot going on constantly and continually in that show. In Andor, it's just plain boring. Another thing we have to talk about is the fact that there are a lot of people out there on comment boards, on a lot of YouTubers that I watch, saying, well, this is pretty good for Disney Star Wars. You're seeing a ton of comments like that. If you don't see the problem with that statement, then you're probably never going to jump on board with my portion of the fandom that wants this stuff gone, like the Lord of the Rings fandom is doing. I mean, they're an example of how to fight back against this garbage, and Star Wars fans just won't do it. I've been subscribed to some huge YouTubers who make tons of money doing this, and they have become shills. They have become exactly what they said they wouldn't, and even as they criticize, say the sequels, they praise crap like this. I don't get it. Again, it's back to that battered fan syndrome. You got to stop it. You got to stop the cycle. I'm not kidding. It's just insane to me that you guys keep going back to this garbage. But like I said, people are saying, is it good for, it's good for Disney Star Wars. Well, when you have a trash heap, and then underneath that trash heap, you have Disney Star Wars, if you come out with something even mildly mediocre, you're going to say, wow, it looks really good when compared to whatever's underneath that trash heap. And that's where we're at. It's something that with this show is, I think, verifiable. I think you can actually prove it. But again, I guess it comes down to your opinion on what you like. But when you have to add a qualifier, it's good for Disney Star Wars, I think you're left in a place where you really have to do some self-reflection if you're an actual Star Wars fan. You go, well, I just said it's good for Disney Star Wars. It should be something on the lines of, well, it's just really good. That's where most statements end for really good shows. And like I said earlier, this is, again, splitting the fandom. I'm watching people in the comment sections go crazy, get mad at each other, call people names again. And I'm like, man, that didn't happen back in the day. Before George Lucas sold Disney, you used to be able to have some pretty good debates with people. Every once in a while, you'd run into something that we'd call a woke person today, but it was rare. You'd be able to have some good debates with people. And one of those debates was, do you want to know the story of Star Wars characters that have nothing to do with the Force? And my argument was always, the Force has to be in it. So do Jedi, so do Sith. That is the core of Star Wars. But there's a small core group of people who wants to know what's happening to the everyday Joe in the Star Wars galaxy. I could never see that point of view. I like to have the ancillary characters surrounding the Force and Jedi, but I didn't understand why you would want to see Star Wars without the Force. Let me give you some examples here. What is Harry Potter? What is Harry Potter without the magic? What is Lord of the Rings without the fantasy and magic? What is Star Trek without the fantastic sci-fi technology? What is Doctor Who without the science and the sci-fi? What is He-Man without the power of Grayskull? The list goes on and on. What do these shows become? To me, they just become a bunch of guys walking around basically Britain and doing their regular stuff, eating, painting, doing whatever they do, going to work. I don't care about that. I watch fantasy shows and films so that I can escape and have some fun with them, which brings me to my last and probably most important point about all of this. This is not Star Wars. I don't care which way you cut it. It doesn't have Star Wars in it because it doesn't have the central focus of Star Wars, which is the fantasy element. You have a couple little dogs in one scene that look a little different. That's kind of fantastical. But beyond that, you don't have anything else. And at the core of Star Wars, I hate to tell you this, those of you arguing this point that I don't agree with at all, Star Wars is the Force, plain and simple. It's Jedi, it's Sith, and it's the Force. And then it's the ancillary characters around them that help support that. Again, all those shows I just mentioned, without their fantasy, they quit being what they are. This is exactly what is happening with Star Wars. And it's something that, like I said, it started way before Disney ever sold Star Wars. And it's just become really odd in this instance. There's this small contingent of people who want to see that. And my argument is, and I think it's pretty factually based, you can't have Star Wars without the Force, period. It ceases to be Star Wars. Absolutely. And this show doesn't have it in it. Might it have Star Wars in it at some point, or the Force in it at some point? I don't even care. because of what the showrunners, going back to my first point, of what the showrunners have said that this show is about. You are going to see subversion. You are going to be Rian Johnson again. I don't know if they'll do the bait and switch, but they might. They have told you what's going to happen with this specific story. They've told you, and you people are ignoring it, or you're just not reading it, doing your research on it. So when you get surprised at the end that this thing falls apart and looks like another Disney crap fest, hopefully it'll change your mind on this, and hopefully this video will help do it, that you need to push back against this. Now, I have a theory that Disney doesn't care about money. I've been talking about that forever. And what I've suggested with that is that even if you guys all quit giving them money, they would still put this stuff out because they are hardcore activists and they want to make sure that the message is out there. They'll drain every penny from Star Wars and Disney to get the message out there. I truly believe that, but I might be wrong. And on the off chance that I am wrong, isn't it better to join a fight where we get to quit giving them our money? And I've already quit doing that many, many years ago. And so have about 20% of the fan base. But, you know, some of you are starting to slink back to it. Just quit doing it. But wouldn't it be better if we quit giving them our money and they actually did respond to that? Man, I'd be all for that, obviously. And I know a lot of you would too. I've talked to you online all the time. So why are we still giving money to these people? I hope I am wrong about the political ideology being more powerful than money. Because if I am, you know what that means? It means we got a chance to actually get our Star Wars back. It means we got a chance to represent ourselves like the Lord of the Rings fans are doing. It means we've got a chance to win back the most special IP on the planet. And I hope you will join me in doing that. I'm Joe. Papa Jobos, that's all I got. See ya.